Hello, great. It's Fireside Chat time again. All right. I could see a lot of people from Facebook and YouTube are already joining. That's great. Today we're gonna have an amazing time talking about some things not technical. So it's not every time we go technical. In the last two fireside, we went all technical and stuff, but uh, technical and non-technical is what makes technology. Because if we focus too much on technology and technical bit all the time, then it takes away the human side of things. At the end of the day, we're human beings, right? So we need to talk about soft skills, other non-technical side of things. And our guest today is actually a very, very technical person, highly technical person. But who else will be better to talk about, non-technical things than someone who is technical and has been there and knows truly the impact of, the non-technical side of things in the technology space. So in today's fireside chat, what we're going to be talking about is communication skills, teamwork, leadership, all these soft skills, what it means as you're building your tech career. So very important. So I'm going to be bringing on stage Jones, our co-founder and chief commercial officer at Dari.io. And by the way, for those who are joining the fireside chat for the first time, ever. This is going to be I think this is the third or fourth episode, and we do these every 2 weeks. The purpose is to talk technology, obviously, but also to catch up on our progress because we run a talent infrastructure organization where we help people build tech skills and launch their tech career right from zero background, but it does come with a lot of work, right? And we use this to catch up every 2 weeks to talk about our progress. So even though we bring in guests from the industry to encourage and to help us in our journey, it's also an opportunity for you guys to put in the chat section what you've been doing in the last 2 weeks. So if you're joining for the very first time, please put in the chat section. Let's know you. Let's get a feel of those who are joining for the first time, joining our community, and we can welcome you properly. Okay. And if there's anything particularly that you're interested in, feel free to put in the chat section because we're going to be reading all the questions and all the things that we see on there and address them to reflect on what you're doing in your career. So if you're already on the Diary.io platform, and you are implementing projects, whether it's in data analysis, cybersecurity, DevOps, cloud, there are lots of hands-on projects that you get to work with. And we have it's AI contextual learning platform, right? So as you work on your projects, you get personalized feedback on the work that you do, which also helps you progress as you go along. So they are not hello world type of projects, so if you've been in the tech space for a bit, you understand the difference between just doing hello world type of projects and end-to-end type of projects that really gives you the kind of experience that you need to succeed when you get started in the industry. All right. So I'm going to be bringing up Jones on stage, and we will bring Shubham as well. We'll introduce Shubham so that we can get started with today's fireside chat. So, Jones, welcome to the show. How are you doing, man?
Caught me. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, yeah. Just as good as the last, 10 minutes ago we last met. I'm really good. I'm really
That's
good.
great. That's awesome. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring Shubham on the stage as well, and then I'll just leave it to you guys to just go, back and forth on all the discussion. And if I have to chime in or ask questions or anything like that, I'll do that. while we'll also look at the chat section and see what people are saying.
Cool.
All right. So welcome to the show, Shubham.
Hey guys. Hey Jonah. Hi Derry.
How you
Great.
doing?
It's good to be here. How are you?
Good. We've got the video here. I think Dari's already gone on mute, so that's fantastic. I think it's just me and you for the next few minutes. So thank you once again for taking up your evening. Where are you now? Where are you now? You're in Belgium? Where are you based now?
I'm in Germany right now.
Germany right now. So thank you for dialing in all the way from Germany. So as the sort of outline of the event suggests, we're going to be touching on soft skills today and why they're important. And hopefully, given your highly technical, as Ari said, given your highly technical background, you'll be in a great perspective or space to be able to share more around some of the issues. And I'll kind of draw those subjects out via questioning. But before I do, for the sake of those listening, I've never met you before. I'm Jones. I think I was on 1 or 2 firesides before. But, soft skills may not immediately seem like something that's important, given that we deal with tech careers and the technical aspects. But particularly given what we do, right? When it comes to learning, there are 2 aspects of it, right? You've got the knowledge side, which, is kind of what is the foundation of learning as it is right now. And then we've got the skill side. And the skill side is where Dari.io really does come into its own, right? And it's this skills part that we really focus upon. And communication is a big part of that skill side. So with something we've launched recently, which is called Externs, which you may or may not have heard about, which is that live production environment that we now offer, where individuals are able to sort of, work in the real context of being engineers. It became very apparent that this whole idea of soft skills become even more important because, I've led and I've kind of recruited technical teams, and the ability or the lack of ability to understand, to convey information, to clarify the outcomes that I'm seeking, for example, as a protective client, and for you to tell me where you actually are in your journey from a technical perspective can make or break everything. It really is the difference between, getting yourself into a role, securing that role, making sure done actually means done, making sure the quality of output that's expected of you actually is there. These things are actually skill on top of the knowledge. And so it's really important that we listen to what Shub has to share, and hopefully I can tease that out as we kind of get through the conversation. So Shub, if you could, maybe just touch on what you do currently and kind of your journey, to get there and very quickly, and then we can kind of get into a bit more detail around, skills and communication.
Sure, sounds good. So hey everyone who's watching us on this fireside chat. My name is Shubham, and I work as a systems engineer at Trivago here in Germany. And my main focus is, again, what you guys are here for: DevOps, platform engineering. And currently, I'm working very closely with the Google and the site reliability engineering team at Trivago to build a hybrid platform so that, in the end, it's the teams and the developers who are going to be your customer if you join a company, whether you are calling yourself a DevOps engineer, platform engineer. You're building something for them. And we have this, a scattered environment right now where we have some Kubernetes workloads running on GCP, and we are planning to move them back to the data center. And the transition, rather, we are not decommissioning the cloud. We want to have it hybrid. So maybe some services could be living on the cloud, which is live user paths, but some things that may not need to be there for security, for cost reasons. There should be an easy transition to come to get them back to the data center, and they should be in the same environment as they were in the Google Cloud. So me and my team have been working for the last 6 and 7 months to build this hybrid platform, and it's looking good. It's taking shape now. We've got good workloads. We have moved a couple of things from Google Cloud. Again, it's a hybrid platform. So I mostly work with platform engineers. I work with site reliability engineers and the teams to understand how the applications are built, deployed, and managed, so that we can move them back in-house, essentially saving cost, and removing that complexity from the teams of how do I move these things back. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm working with right now.
Fantastic. That's a perfect example. That's a perfect place to kind of jump off. Because, for everybody listening, everyone contemplating a technology career, at least on the sort of hands-on side, there are 2 aspects where this communication things come together. Like you've got the project side of things, right? and you've got the client relationships and the stakeholder relationships. So maybe if you could you give us some examples how communication skills have helped you successfully navigate those two things, right? Whether from a project perspective or from a client relationship perspective.
I think I want to go even a bit further than that. The way I started my journey into IT and tech when I was a fresh grad from my university back in 2017, I joined a company, and fortunately enough, I was supposed to be working as a Red Hat instructor. So when you start working as an instructor, you have to be very calm, very composed, and you have to be able to communicate things properly. Otherwise, people who are sitting 8 hours in front of you, they're going to be like, "What is this guy talking about?" I don't know that. So we were supposed to be certified from Red Hat as an instructor, and we were supposed to go to Germany. I was in India back then. And my manager calls me up and says, "Hey, you know what? You have a flight tomorrow to Germany. You're going to be going with one another guy. He's 11 years of experience. He also needs to get his certification. And you guys have to present something to the members of the panel who would certify you as an instructor." So that guy had 11 years of experience. I was fresh out of my university. Skill-wise, of course, there's a difference in skill because he's been working there for so long. I was starting up. I knew my things, which I needed to work as a job that I was looking for, but he had a lot of experience before me. Long story short, we went there, we gave our demos, we gave the presentation, we came back. That guy was not selected for the program, and I was selected, even though he had like 11 years of experience, and I was a fresh grad of university.
Yes.
And the feedback that we got from that technical account manager who was supposed to certify or not certify us is that he, or the guy who was back working there, no disrespect to anyone, he just wasn't cutting off in communication to be able to express what he wants to say. And I was able to do that, whether I was making some interactive presentations to go with people, maybe I was playing some games with them in the classes or whatever it was. You just was able to express yourself clearly. Of course, it has to be English because everybody works in that. It's a business language, right?
Yes.
So for me, that was the main thing that changed my life, which was communication. It wasn't even the skill, really. It was the communication. Because if I would have flunked there, I wouldn't have started my journey that way, which I really want.
Absolutely.
So there may be questions. I'll come on to the part of how it is coming up now in my field.
Sure.
But I think if communication it's not less important than skills. It could be even more, and depends upon the environment when it would get more important. For example, if you're sitting in an interview, you may have a pretty rad project that you have created. You have got your pipelines running, you have got the code ready, you have got it live, everything is there. But if you're not able to express that to the interviewer, he just sees a website, that's it. But he doesn't see the work that you have done behind that. He doesn't see the 10 different services that you may have been using for the cloud.
Yes.
And it diminishes your value and your product's value if you're not able to express that enough. So that way, if somebody else has done a mediocre project, but he's able to sell themselves by speaking, by communicating, by exactly saying what the recruiter wants to hear,
yes,
you would have more chances of getting into the job. Those are not technical. Most of the times they are not technical. So this is where your communication gets a bit more important than it has your skills. And right now, when you come into the company, currently, I work with people who are developers. I work with cross-platform teams who are working in Google Cloud, who are working as site reliability engineers. We have to communicate with them every day.
Yes.
We have to be able to. So right now, one thing that's been going on is to we have Argo CD. We use Argo CD for pushing out our configurations. It's a CI/CD tool. There's one Argo CD instance running in the Google Cloud. We also have our own Argo CD, and we now want to manage or merge these things together. So we have a single point of view for the developers. Right now, they are confused. If I have to go to the data center, which Argo CD am I going to be using? So to make their lives easier, we communicate with the teams who's managing the other instances very, very closely. And it has to be clear communication. Otherwise, you wouldn't be getting anything done. You would just be running in circles like a headless chicken. And that could be the biggest problem. DevOps was never about the tool. It was about effective communication. So you have to be able to do that.
Yes. No, that's really helpful. That makes a lot of sense. In the examples, you mentioned how sometimes you're working with or reporting in to people that aren't technical. And it happens even with us, for example, with the externs. I get to kind of listen in as a stakeholder and listen to some of the stand-ups and listen to the communication. And some of the things the guys are working on is when I worked in sales, you've got this whole idea of features, advantages, and benefits.
Yeah.
And you've got this tendency as a technical individual to think that because you're telling me technical stuff, I get it or I give a damn. When really and truly part of communication is really around taking time to listen to what the ask is and addressing the ask. What does the person want to understand from this? And just delivering on the parts that they want, because that's how, sort of impact kind of is derived. And the more you practice, the more you can learn from it. So, before we move on from this subject, because it's really key and really understated, and yes, we're addressing it as an organization in Diary and externs, but where have you seen it go wrong? How do you see, engineers or analysts get it wrong when it comes to, communication? What are some of the worst cases or things people should look out for when they're in a situation where they need to communicate with stakeholders?
I think I would like to give my own example, because I was a mess when I joined. I was always about, and everyone who comes from an engineering background, they have been studying technology all their life. They have been building technology all their life. Whether anybody who's an extern here at Dari or somebody who's studying outside, we want to get our basics right, and that is the skill, the technology, the knowledge that we want to impart. The problem is, there may be people that you would be reporting to, like your manager or your manager's manager. They are not technical, as I said. So
Yes.
if you are in a room with them, you speak 10 minutes about Terraform. It's good, it's great, it's an infrastructure as a code tool. You can manage your infra like that. You can create machines. They don't give a damn about it. And I've done that. I was once with my manager's managers. It was a VP in one of the companies, and I told him how good the product is, the features of that product, because I've been dealing with that feature for so long and I liked it. And I was
Yeah.
But then he comes with this with the question, what does it do for us? And that got me completely blank, because I had an answer, but that was still technical. I
Yes.
couldn't understand what he was asking me for.
Adjust. Yeah.
You have to also speak in the business language that not many people would be there just for the technicals of it. Then I had to tell him that right now, if you do things manually, it will take you this many time. There will be errors in humans. That's what they understand. When you tell them, it's kind of like I come to you and I say, this is a great car. This has many features, blah, blah, blah. I don't think you ever start with that. You should first, before selling a solution, sell them a problem. Try to corner them. That if you were to get in a situation like this, what would you do? And then when you start thinking, you bring out your solution. So maybe this would be an idea for your problem.
Yes. Yes.
And I've been there, I've done that. And I was counseled by my manager, dude, stop the technical, give them what they want, because they don't have time to listen to you blabbering about a technology. They are the decision makers. You deal with it. Just give them what are the benefit that they're going to get. So you could tell them, you're going to reduce the time, you would reduce human complexity, your cycles will be faster for delivering the application. You hear that, and then more money in the end, because the more iterations, the faster the product is getting better and more money for you.
Absolutely.
That's what I understood. But I have learned it the hard way. You have to read your terrain with the people you are sitting with.
Yeah, no, that's valuable. That's valuable. And so many of our alumni and those looking to join are kind of fast forward in their journey towards when you have to go to interview, right? But even in the interview stage, yes, it might be a technical role, but your ability to talk about what you've done in terms of the features, but the business impact, what the outcome was, and break that all into one kind of communication is really, really powerful for people to actually see, what you can do. And they start to vision how you would be in their environment and how useful you'd be able to be, for them. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's super, super, super powerful. And I look forward to any questions and anything people want to learn more from that, they can sort of drill into it. So, maybe we should now move the conversation now to sort of teamwork. And again, shameless shield, we do, we've got the externs thing going on. And part of that is about the collaboration. Because, you can learn DevOps, you can learn these things in a silo, but in the end, when it comes to delivery, you're collaborating with people, you're collaborating with teams. And aside from the communication, you've got to get that collaboration piece right. So, from your experience, then maybe share some ideas and some things you've done to sort of foster a collaborative environment. What strategies do you employ or do or use to ensure that everybody's aligned towards a common goal?
So first of all, you have to be respectful to people, because this is where you can start having a disagreements with, with your colleagues. Maybe there's a problem to which I might have a solution,
Yes.
but there may be another person who might have another solution. So we should not get into a fight who's better here.
Interesting. Very
Rather,
interesting.
you should start, doing a POC, for example, do a proof of concept, that if I do this, this is what we get, the pros and cons list. But if I do that, this is what we get, a pros and
Yes.
cons list.
Yes.
So I think the question was, how do you how do you foster a collaborative environment?
Strategies around that. Yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be respectful to people, first of all, and second, you got to be able to learn the constructive criticism. You can't take that to the heart,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Mm-hmm.
can't also say that to the another person who would take this to the heart, because in the end, we're all humans. You can read all the graph, you can all read the charts. You should not take your emotions in the business. It doesn't happen. We are humans. We would eventually
Yes.
get.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's one. Second, I have had some situations where I had to go to a colleague when I would want to offer some help. Say if
Mm-hmm.
a colleague of mine is working for this certified Kubernetes associate or developer exam, and he's been trying to learn Kubernetes for a long time, and I'm pretty good at that, for example,
Yes.
I would go to him, and this happened. I went to him and I told him, dude, you've been learning this for so long. I would be happy to help you there. And you have to kind of get them to trust you. You can't just say, I know this, ask me, because he might
Mm-hmm.
not do that. We are adults, we are not kids, who would just come up to you and say, I don't know that, can you tell me? Because there's a
Absolutely.
level of, okay, you are on the same company, same level. Somebody might know more than you, but you might be a bit hesitant because it
Yes.
shows a bit vulnerable in this technology somewhere
Yes.
around there.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
has to be respect, it has to be earning people's trust,
Yes.
and I think that's the two things that I would suggest. Don't
Fantastic.
make people feel belittle about they don't know something.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I see some level of empathy in what you're saying. Being approachable. And being someone that's known for that. When you start talking about like trust and things like that. So those seem like definite, tools, strategies, make sure that you're always aligned, and that's really, really important. I can't imagine for the life of me someone who's arrogant, pompous, know-it-all, not approachable, and makes it so, regardless of how talented they are. It's unlikely they're going to be able to gel in teams. And I know a lot of people that have been sacked or rid of
Mm.
for the soft skills, not because of what they're able to do, but just because the other members of the team don't see them as a cog that helps them to move forward. They become an obstruction. So that's really, really crucial. And now we're going to turn the conversation to sort of leadership. And I'm going to flip it two ways, because in my prep, I talked about, you potentially sharing with us some challenging phases that you've been through, like you leading teams with challenging phases, like what your thoughts are and what your approach is when it comes to leading teams in challenging phases. But then if you could also maybe touch on following teams in challenging phases. So us putting ourselves in the shoes of someone that's junior or new in an environment, how are they going to navigate a situation where there is challenge and they lack self-confidence, maybe in such an environment?
I think the only way to be a bit more confident about in your job is to know your things. That is the basics of it, because and that's where your skills really come into the picture. Because if you do not have skills, say if you're working on a, again, my mind keeps thinking about technical words, and I would say that people are here who've been learning technology with Derry, right?
Yeah,
So, for instance, if I'm using Ansible, which is a automation technology, if I want to be able to hold a conversation with someone for like at least 5 minutes, I need to know the inside outs of it, or at
sure.
least I should have been able to work on that enough to
Yes.
speak.
Mhm.
Guys, I think this is not the way we should go, but rather in Ansible, there's another option, there's another solution to go with
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
because there are many ways to solve a problem. But if you don't know your technology, you would be not in a position to even start communicating with people. Because what are you going to talk about if you don't know
Yes.
your work?
Yes.
Communication
Yes.
comes later. If you
Yes.
know something, otherwise you're just going to speak blabbering, and that's even worse for you. Then you might as well shut up because you don't know that. So I remember this happened with me once when I was so we also work on a data center level. So there are many network switches that we manage, day every day, about
Mhm.
also in the data center that one we have here.
Mhm.
And I I posted an option to my leadership, or rather a solution that, guys, I think we could start using automation for these network management devices.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this side, we don't touch the network devices very often. The configuration of those devices do not very it doesn't change very often. For Linux, sure, you can go ahead. We have many Linux servers, thousands of them. You can manage them. It's fine. But for network, we probably would not want to do that. And
Mm.
then I still felt a problem, because it's not that they said no, don't do it. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
the issue. The issue
Yes.
was the network devices was configured with God knows how many configurations. Who did that? Who left the company? We didn't know about it.
Sure.
So if I had to query something, I had to really go to the computer or the network server and read the configuration from there. For me, that was a big problem because you have hundreds of servers, you have hundreds of network devices. You need to have a single source of truth. You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
if I could just look in one file and this tells me this is the configuration of my networks that I have, and that gives me
Mm.
more confidence that if I change one here, it would be reflected everywhere and it would be
Sure.
standard because I
Mm-hmm.
know
Mm-hmm.
my the configuration. Then what I started is I worked on a tool called Netbox. It's an option. Sorry about that. There was an update. So I proposed another solution that, guys, maybe we could use Ansible to have all of our configuration pulled from the computers or all the servers, network devices, and have that in Netbox, which will be our single source of truth. Now you
Mm-hmm.
could make changes in Netbox, integrate that with Ansible, and your changes will be rolled out. And you know what has been rolled out because your peers would review that in a pull request, maybe in GitHub,
Nice.
for instance.
Yes.
Then they
Yes.
got the idea. And then they got, they saw the value in it that maybe even though we are not making a lot of changes, we
Yes.
still could, if we need to, we have all the configurations in one place. So you really have to show them the value by doing that POC. Took me some
Yes.
time. I did that, and then when they are very data driven. The people you are talking to in your leadership, they're very data driven. So you
Yes.
have to give them the data.
Yeah.
Before this was a problem, but now you see, just by looking at one place, you can really see the configurations of all the hundred network devices. You can manage that. You can manage everything, and they saw the value in it, and now it's
Yes.
running in the company, and it's been working
Nice.
well.
Nice. Wow. I mean, that's so it's kind of good and not good that we don't have Dario right here right now because he'd probably have like 50 million questions. Oh yeah, look. He's
I've,
probably got like a million and one questions and comments to make on that,
I've
right?
been listening in all along and I've been jotting down some of the
So,
questions.
so I don't want us to leave those drill downs too late. So if there's anything you want to add at this point before you do, maybe just add it in now because that's just so powerful. And I
Yeah,
think what you said at the start of that, in summary, is kind of like you need to know your stuff, and in knowing your stuff in many ways means you really are disciplined and familiar. We drive for that here at Daridao. So you need to be familiar, and that familiarity comes from what? From doing it and doing it and doing it in different ways, right? And so in my head, I'm thinking this is exactly that's our methodology, right? Making sure that you're in that position. So when you are in that unfamiliar situation, there's less self-doubt because you know your
yeah,
stuff, and because you know your stuff, you can process and suggest solutions from a place of knowledge, not theory, but knowledge and skill. But Daria, I'm sure you've got something you want to add on this point.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And there are some really important points that Shubham had actually hit,
Mm.
and I want to also contribute to some of those discussions,
Sure.
especially around communication within the teams. When he was touching base on the trust, when you want to give help to someone,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't just go into someone's space and just impose yourself on them. Naturally people will just sort of start looking at you like, okay, who's this? What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important to build trust over time. And
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that a lot. And to be honest, one thing a lot of us should realize is when you're going into organizations, you will meet different kinds of people,
Personalities. Yeah.
different personalities. Some people, I've seen engineers that they just don't want to talk to anyone. They just want to be in their corner. They just want to do their job. They just want to do their work, and they just are not interested in collaborating or doing anything with anyone, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is not one of those attributes that you want to pick up as you are progressing in your career. Organizations don't like that, generally speaking. That's just a conclusion. Culture wise, no company, no team actually likes that, because it doesn't make you become approachable, because we don't all know it, right? If I need help because you're always like that, I don't have the confidence to come to you. And you may have been in the organization for long. It doesn't mean you know more than me, but you may know more than me as it relates to that organization. So I need help, right? So if you're not approachable, then you're not a team player. So if you are that person that also wants to help another person, you have to also understand that that other person should be in a position that they can gladly receive from you. So it's a two-way thing. Um, Now, there's something I want to highlight in terms of how we actually help with this type of things at Diary.io and Extent. On Diary.io, we have something called the knowledge gap sessions, because, as you know, we have capstone projects, mini projects, and all that. And when you work on these projects, you build a lot of skills, you learn a lot of things. But the true value comes when you're teaching other people how the things that you've learned, because maybe 50% of the things you learned will stay. The remaining 50% will probably fly away if you don't keep talking about it, right? So we've introduced the knowledge gap session, where you can actually broadcast within the network of the community and say, who's interested in learning about Ansible roles that I've just learned, and we organize a session for you where you can actually teach people and people can interact with you. And that is very powerful, because not only are you retaining knowledge, you're also building soft skills. Because we've seen a lot of people not really have that communication skills initially. And when it comes to communicating at the workplace, using certain terminologies and jargons and things like that actually is also important. Now, depending on who the audience is, if you're speaking to people who are technical, you want to be able to show that you understand what you're talking about and use the right terminologies at the right time. Okay. And the only way that will happen is when you are engaged in it. It doesn't come by trying to memorize those things. It should come naturally. And it's only when you engage and you're always communicating and you're curious that this kind of things, happen. So I've been listening to all that Shubham has been saying, very, very important. And I just wanted to highlight, these things and just put them out there. So
Yes, cool. I think that's fantastic. I think I've only got one more question for the sake of time. People listening, if you could start getting your questions in, that would be fantastic, because we want to spend as much time as possible and use Shubham's time to really support you as he's on a cold face, as it were. We call it. He's in the trenches, right? He's in the trenches, so we get that feedback from the trenches. But actually, funny enough, the last question really is around continuous learning. Right, the last question we're going to focus on. And it really says, I've written it down. It says, what advice would you give to aspiring tech professionals aiming to improve their tech skills? And the context for this is really around marrying technical expertise with the development of soft skills. So how do you suggest people go about doing that? I mean, you can just say, get Diary.io, right? But once you've done Diary.io, you've gone past Extend, you move out of that environment. So generally, how would you suggest they go about navigating those two things, marrying technical expertise and developing soft skills?
This is actually a very good question, because I was about to add something to what Daddy said, but this question brings me to the same place. This happened. This happened with me once when I was with my manager when I was in a previous company. People in technology, they have been, they have been, their brains have been molded in a way that if you say something even a bit off, for example, I'm saying Ansible is an automation tool, for instance. If I would have just said Ansible is automation, there would be someone who would be so igged by it. I mean, what? And he would say, what are you talking about? Same thing goes on. For example, you talk about Amazon Web Services. There's a service called EFS, for instance. People who would know about it. If I say, yeah, just attach EFS to that instance, And there would be someone who would say, no, it's not attaching, it's mounting. There's a difference. So people have been really, really brought up in their ways of thinking that even if you meant the same thing, but you say something different, they'd be like, flip out. Dude, what are you talking about? So I think to practice that, this knowledge gap that we do, this is absolutely fantastic. Because when you come here, you might know your things, but you may not know how to say that.
Yeah.
You might be thinking in your mind that I'm exactly saying the same thing, but you may have said something which is even 10% off the topic. Somebody else might catch it. Maybe not you, but maybe someone else who's who's in in the management leadership, who's been working a lot on that technology. They would correct you. If you get that done in a safe environment, you develop really, really well. And that's what I like about our knowledge gap sessions, that when people come up and they say, I would like to speak about Ansible roles, sure. There would be someone who can correct them that even though you meant the right thing, this is how you say it. Because then anybody else outside would just catch it and say, this guy doesn't know about what he's talking about, so maybe just let him go.
Yes.
It has happened, and I've done that myself, and I'm not proud of it. But
Yeah.
as people who are engineers, we've been doing this for so long, we kind of start loving the technology that don't talk wrong about that.
Yeah.
That's the way you should say it. So there's a big bias with it.
It's a
Something
big credibility piece. Go on.
something happened in our sprint demo for externs, because with the externs program we run daily standard sprint planning, sprint demos, and all that, just like it's done in the real world, right? And it was the first sprint for the guys. They're delivering a highly scalable, secure infrastructure in AWS, automating the whole thing with a Packer, Terraform, and building Wazoo cluster and Splunk and all that. So it was their first sprint demo after completing a 3-week sprint. And most of the things they had done was just writing shell scripts that is used as part of the Packer template. And there was this particular extern. We call them extern, but technically speaking, they are actually engineers that are doing the work. And now this has nothing to do with the technology particularly. So there are certain terminologies that are very important that may not even relate to DevOps or data analysis or whatever, that are also very important. And I'll give you this typical example. So he was trying to relate to the Jira tickets that he was working on. Then he kept on saying, so I'm working on this project, and he kept on saying project.
Oh man, I get what you're talking about.
Exactly. And I had to pick that up and say, dude, it's a user story or Jira ticket, right? And you can't blame him because that's the whole point of the extension program, so that we can pick those things out. And I like the fact that you mentioned in a safe environment the other time. You can't do that in certain environments that are very, very focused on delivery and focused on progress and tight deadlines and all that. They will frown at it. Even though it's not related particularly to the work that you're doing, but they expect that you should be at certain standard, and the kind of things that you say has to reflect that. So it's very good that we're picking these things out in the extens community and we're correcting people accordingly, and they're picking it up. Another example is someone using a different terminology for provisioning resources in the cloud, saying, "Oh, I think you used the word. I can't even remember the particular word, but we had to pick that up and say, look, when you're building out resources in the cloud, you're provisioning them.
Right.
Okay, you're not just gonna say I'm creating or some funny thing. So those things are very important. It goes a long way during interviews. It goes a long way even on the job. And I like this discussion we're having today. That's very, very, very important.
And what's great about soft skills is that they can be learned, right?
Yes.
They're not fixed. They're in a
Yeah.
growth growth side, right? And so that's what I love about it, and love about some of the work that we do, and love about how it brings everybody hope who's trying to accelerate their career when it comes to tech. So that's really, really, exciting to hear and to see, what your thoughts are on that as well. Dari, I don't know if you've got some questions on the sidelines before we wrap up, but
Yes.
Yeah, please do.
I have just one more question for Shubham. So there's this thing that happens when you just get a job, right? It happened to me, too, and it happens to a lot of people. When you get your first job, you're just getting into the industry, and you still have that imposter syndrome thing where you're not really sure of yourself, right? And because of that, you're not even sure what is the right question to ask. You don't know if your question is going to be too silly or, and you don't know how people are going to react to the question that you ask. And for that reason, I've seen people not even ask at all and they're stuck. And in reality, you have to ask questions, when you're working in teams, because some things there's no way you're just going to know unless someone shows you, unless you ask. So how do you know when a question is silly or the right question or not? How can you help someone understand when to ask for help?
That's a good question. Really good question.
That's a very good question, and I think I still, have a bit of that imposter syndrome, and I think a bit of that is good because then you don't get cocky in your head that I know everything. You're humbled by a lot of people in your journey. You will see that they know a lot. So this usually happens with me. If I'm, let's say, there's a presentation of somebody who's presenting something that across teams we usually have some collaboration. So there would be a person who would suggest, this is what we are doing, this is what we are building, and all that. So this is for me, and this is true. I am a bit hesitant to ask him right then and there because I think, what if everybody knows about it? And do I feel like an idiot? And maybe I do. That's why I don't ask him right in that moment. But then later on, because we use Slack, you might use Teams, you might use anything else, I would personally go to him and say, hey, I really loved your presentation. I had a question. Do you mind if we meet over a coffee in the campus and we could just, I have some questions to you. And usually people are very responsive to that. So first thing, if you really think that question, no question is silly, but there are some questions which are silly. You could still say that. There's silver lining in it. But if you don't ask that question, whether in public or in person, put it this way, if you ask that question, you might be stupid for 10 minutes. But if you don't ask that question, you're going to be stupid for the rest of your life. So you have to pick your poison. And if I go to that person personally, and if I ask him the question, people talk to other people. He might tell his colleague, one or two, you know what, that guy in that team asked me this stupid thing. And okay, but I'm not in front of 20 people in the room. So only people know that I'm an idiot. Not 20 people know that I'm an idiot. And that's okay. That's a very controlled blast radius. So how you should do that. And gradually, when you get to know what they're doing, you start forming the good questions. And this is where I think the platform that we have, it really helps. Here, everyone knows equal. Nobody knows a lot. Nobody knows less. So everybody is in the same boat. So you can ask questions, and there will be someone who would probably be answering you. So this platform really goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's and it's interesting to know that there are some really funny people out there. You ask someone a question privately on Slack, and they say, "Go and put it in the general chat," and they won't respond to you. I've seen some people, like that. But it's fine when they do that. It's fine. Just what I generally say to people is, do your research before you go asking questions, especially if you have to ask the question publicly. Okay,
right.
If you, for example, if you need help, right, and you want to ask for help, the formula is very simple. You ask your question, and also you talk about the things that you have done. It helps the person reading to know that, okay, you've actually taken some steps to try to fix the problem yourself,
Absolutely.
and now you're stuck, and
Mhm.
they kind of have an idea of where you're at and can
Mhm.
help you from there.
Mm.
But
Mm.
if you're asking questions and you're not putting context to it,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
then
Mm.
that's not good, right?
Mm.
So you
Mm.
ask question, you put some context, and then you say, well, I'm trying to get onto this server, I'm getting this permission denied. I have checked this, I have checked the IP address is correct, I have
Mm.
checked permissions of the SSH key, it's
Right.
correct,
Right.
but it's still not working. What can I do? Is there something
Mm.
else I need to do specific to the environment that I
Mm.
don't know? That way, even though it might be very silly question, because it's expected that you know how to SSH into a server,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
But the way you have asked it and the things you've done makes it obvious that you're not silly,
Yeah.
right?
True.
Yeah.
So even if you don't know about it, try to do some research on your own. Try to make some effort before you then go out there asking questions. Then that gives you the confidence to ask questions.
I think that's a very good thing, because if I go to my if I go to a person and I just say, hey, you know what, I cannot log into the VM, and he's gonna ask me a lot of questions. Have you tried this? Have you tried that? Have you tried that? And that makes him think that I'm an idiot, because
Yes.
that's the basic of it. If I go to the person and say, hey, look, there's a VM. I think my exactly what you said. My key is right. I've tried using I have also make sure the security group is correct. My port is open. So he thinks you know a lot of things. Maybe specific to that one particular machine is what you don't know about.
Yeah.
Then he might give you an answer. You know what? The port is not 8080. The port is 5050. We changed it. Oh, you didn't know that. That's fine. He doesn't think you're off as an idiot. But you have to give him some context. This is what I did. This is what it's failing, and how do I fix it? So
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because it's just basically how I get results from my wife, right? It's the same language, right? So I say to my missus, "Oh, I can't find my keys," and she's thinking, "I'm not getting up. I'm not getting up. Like, what's it? I can't find my keys. I've checked the drawer. I've checked the door. I've checked that."
no.
Then this, then this is something too. This is gonna get up and go back to the first place that I didn't find it. But again, this is all that soft skills, that communication, that kind of stuff
Yeah.
that you can see how it plays out in every single part of our lives, but we don't realize that we can bring it into our roles. So this has been a very interesting chat. I mean, Dari, have you got any more questions in the
No more questions for me. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
all
And
right. Nothing in the
one
chat.
thing to say before we go to the
Sure.
question, this is something that Darius said, and it's been stuck in my mind. Um, you said this guy kept on using project, right, instead of the tickets, instead of saying that we are working on a specific ticket. Imagine if this would have been done in an interview. If you go to an interview and you say to the recruiter, "Yeah, I have lots of projects. I work in my company. I track my projects," and it says maybe you're working on something different. Maybe you're working something as a hobby.
Mhm.
But the moment you say, I track all of my work using Jira, I have my customers communicate with the right comments, I update them regularly, the guy would know you have worked in a professional environment, because nobody has got time to reach out to you saying, hey, what's the status update? You rather
Mm.
put your comments in there. And the moment you use the term ticket, you use Jira, you use collaboration, you have to sell yourself properly. And I think that really makes a difference. And if you were doing that in the control environment, which Terry does, there's nothing better than that. You would get the job.
I like that you raised that, right now, because that's exactly what we advocate at the Extens program. Exactly. You know, we tell them, because we do our daily stand-ups, okay? And if you're not going to be attending the stand-ups, you better have your Jira tickets updated.
Right. Exactly.
Also sending in your updates before the stand up, and that's exactly what happens in the real world, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you're working on the ticket, you have to make sure it is well updated, because like you said, no one has time chasing you for
Right.
updates. But
Exactly.
if your tickets are updated all the time to say, okay, this is what I've been doing, even when you're not making progress, even when you're having errors, you put screenshots of what you're dealing with at the moment, that's good enough.
That's
It
very
shows
good.
there is progress.
Yep. And I've used that uh, as an advantage as well, because see, in the end, when it comes to your salary reviews, when it comes to your performance reviews, you cannot humanly remember what you did for the whole year. If
Mm.
you have the board, you can show them this is what I did, that's what I do. So I try to make tickets for everything. Look, it makes you look busy. That's a bit of a hack that you can do. Second, it lets you put a bit of weight that this is what I have done in the end of the in the session where you have your salary getting reviewed, and your manager also sees that because he also doesn't remember what you did the whole year.
Mm,
And people like you, how much he can remember.
That's
So it's good if you do that, and it's also
that's
good for you.
that's very important because then again, when it's time, especially if you're working in a consulting environment that they have to build reports for their client, right? The manager is not going to say, "Oh, Dare did the deployments to this and that." He's not going to say that. He's going to look at the report, generate a Jira report, and say, "Okay, Dare has done 20 tickets in the last X number of days."
Hmm.
Or in the last three sprints, this is the total number of tickets that we have delivered. So creating ticket for every little thing that you're doing, subtasks in your ticket and updating them regularly, very, very important.
That's absolutely crucial. And I've had this conversation with my previous companies that guys, we need to put some good details in the ticket. If you just raise me a ticket saying create me an EC2 instance, I would do that. But then
Mm,
you come to me later and say, oh, you know what? I needed Java in that. Okay, where did you tell me that? You didn't tell me.
mm,
I didn't do it. You have
mm,
to tell me so I can better do the work for you. And the same goes on when you generate a ticket for somebody else. Make them have as much context as you should so that they can also get their job done in a quicker fashion.
absolutely, very important. I remember I joined an organization some years back, and it was just the tech lead who is a software developer. And before I joined, he was the software developer, the architect, the DevOps. He was doing everything. So he had tickets written out on things he wanted to do, but none of those tickets had description or acceptance criteria, right?
Cool.
And that's just because, he's just overwhelmed and he just creates the ticket and just move on. So one
Yeah,
of
yeah.
the things I did in the first sprint of joining the organization wasn't even doing any work. It was just going into those tickets, putting descriptions and acceptance criteria.
Yep.
mm,
Very important. And it's all part of communication because then I get to ask the question, okay, what is the acceptance criteria for this task that we need to do? So we're
Cool.
all on the same page. We know exactly what we need to do. We put it in the ticket. It's all clear. So at the end of the day, you're not going to say, oh, well, but this is what I meant when I
mm,
created this ticket. Oh,
mm.
well, that's what you meant, but I interpreted it differently. So now we have a problem.
What's the
Mm.
acceptance criteria? You have to say where the thing stops and what is the acceptance for it. That's absolutely true.
Waxing lyrical, guys. I don't want to let you guys get carried away. You DevOps guys,
I
you're
think we should
getting
be put in
excited.
check now, Jonah. Please do that. We gotta be put in check now.
We've got a question. We've got a question come through. I don't know if you can see it, Shub, but can you see it? The
It's
question?
from, yes. Is DevOps still relevant, bearing in mind the advent of artificial intelligence and its increasing capabilities? Um, I would say it is. See, I'm not gonna use the term DevOps is dead. Rather, it's evolving into a bit of platform engineering. You know, DevOps would not be dead because even though, let's say, you might have seen the advantages. Kubernetes, for instance, it's not a product, it's not a project. It's rather an operating system for your infrastructure and your applications. It gives you monitoring, it gives you memory, CPU, storage, network, everything is being dealt with. And as the adaptation is going on, people have been running their workloads on top of Kubernetes. I mean, if you go to OpenAI blogs, you would find how they are managing 7,500 nodes of Kubernetes, clusters. It's massive, it's huge. And it's OpenAI. They own the Chat GPT, right? Are they going to say DevOps is dead? No, you can't get this feed without a proper automation, without a proper sort of platform, without a proper sort of infrastructure. So I wouldn't say if you're looking for a job in DevOps, don't limit yourself to that. Be open to anything. DevOps, cloud, platform engineering, they all are going to converge together. And
Mm,
Kubernetes is going to stay for a long time. And that is one of the key skills that anyone that I name, DevOps, SRE, platform, they're going to need. So it is relevant. It will be relevant because more and more workloads will be running on Kubernetes. Not everybody can afford a GPU, guys. It's expensive as crazy as hell. So you want to, just like you split your CPU for workloads, you're going to be able to split your GPU as well for different workloads. NVIDIA is coming up with their own drivers for being able to do that on Kubernetes. They've got their own container runtimes for that. So it's not dead. I would not say it's dead.
And to add to that, the other Fireside Connect chat that we had, I actually touched a bit on this subject where, I was highlighting the fact that there are many other areas that are evolving out of DevOps, like you said. So there's ML ops, there's AI ops, there's all sorts of different types of ops that are coming out now as a result of artificial intelligence. So that's the perspective people need to start looking at it. And at the end of the day, it is the skill set that you have from the DevOps perspective that you are now going to take in to navigate into all these different areas that you can choose to specialize in later on.
Absolutely. I mean, mathematicians did not get absolute when a calculator was out.
Oh, wow.
The calculator was there, so no more mathematicians. No, they just evolved with it. Cameras are here. That doesn't mean our artists are gone. No, they evolve with it. So it's going to be evolution. It's going to be different the way we see DevOps. It would have a lot more AI and ML introduced to it, but it would still be the foundations that we do.
Fantastic. So, we're probably going to wrap up your time, sure, but I don't know, Darren, if there's any other questions coming up so you can get to the, to the community update on what we've been doing for the past 2 weeks.
Yeah, there's no more questions from me, except if in the community with any questions. So guys, if you have questions before Shubham leaves, please drop your questions and we can have Shubham to give us some intelligence to that.
While the guys are putting their questions, anyone who's listening, guys, get your skills basic right. You can communicate. Say if you're communicating with a team, you could be very good in English. There are people who would be there. But the moment you come back to your desk after that communication, after that collaboration, you're going to be thinking, how do I write a Terraform script that does this and that? That's why your skills would also be extremely important. It's not just a communication. They have to be a balance and they have to be at par. And this is what I think I love about the platform, really. I think when I started learning Python, I was learning about the syntax, about everything. But that didn't work for me. I picked a project and I started learning. I learned data types, I learned APIs, I learned a lot of things because I knew what I wanted to build. So if you have this project-based learning that we do here at Dairy.io, that is absolutely good because that is first in an uncontrolled environment. That's exactly like the real world. There are no guardrails in the real world. You might spend 2 days on a single problem, which is SSH. You don't know why it isn't happening. And that's a good thing. Because that's what's going to happen to you in the real world. Nobody's going to be making everything smooth for you. Easy for you. You got to be able to make that troubleshooting mind, and this is what we do here, and that's what I absolutely love about it.
Awesome, great.
I think that's me and Shub done, Dari. It's been a pleasure spending time with everyone this evening. Thank you so much for your time, Shub. And yeah, I guess we can hand over to you, right?
All right, then. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll catch up afterwards. Cheers.
Sure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so that was fantastic. It's really awesome that we had that session. Okay, so I'm just gonna go through the chat now and see. You guys can start putting in there what you guys have been achieving in the last 2 weeks. Don't forget, little drops make an ocean, like we always say. So if you're starting out fresh and you feel like there's a lot to learn, well, you don't have to learn everything in one day or in 1 month. It takes certain process, certain steps. Okay, and for that reason, you just have to start in bits. Learn something today, tomorrow you learn another thing, and then you do your projects, and then you go through challenges, and then you resolve them, and that's building up experience gradually. So what we like to do on this Fireside Chat is to go through what you guys have been doing in the last 2 weeks, and just talk about your progress. What have you learned? What new thing have you come across? Okay, so let me start off first. Okay, before I go back to some of the messages in regards to updates, there's a question on the screen right now from Crystal that says, which programming language should one learn for DevOps aside from Python and Go? So, I mean, it's a very straightforward answer in the sense that you've mentioned the two really important languages, because Python definitely should be the number one, and Go, if you have the bandwidth, is something that you can learn, especially with the fact that a lot of the technologies coming out in this space are written in Go. Think of Terraform, Kubernetes, all those technologies, Helm, they're all written in Go. And if you have the capacity to understand how to write Go, you'll be in a good spot where you can even write your own, operators in Kubernetes, and just do a lot of advanced stuff. Okay, Python, definitely it's an interpreted language that you can use, for scripting and all sorts. Now, shell scripting is one that is very, very, very key. Okay, so you have to learn how to write your shell script so that you can do automation from a systems administration perspective. Now, on top of that, if you can learn any other language, it doesn't matter what it is, PHP, Java, it's good. You can learn them, maybe not from the perspective of actually building apps, okay, but learn them enough to support them when you're working with developers on a particular project that are using that technology. So let's say you get a job now and it's all .NET, C Sharp and all that. You can learn C Sharp enough to support the team, okay? Learn the basics, understand how the classes and the functions and the syntax and all that, how to build the code, understand it enough to that point that you can actually support it. Okay. If you're working with Java, for example, and there's a framework that they're using in your team, like Spring Boot, for example, and you're working with Kubernetes, there are certain frameworks in Spring that integrates directly with Kubernetes, and being able to support your team from that angle is really, really very good. So you can actually deploy straight into Kubernetes straight from the Java code, right? If you have the Spring configuration as part of the configuration that you're putting into your pipelines, there are ways in which that is done that can just go directly into the Kubernetes clusters, and you can even have your ingress and all that built into it. So supporting your team from that angle is something you might want to look into. Okay. All right. So let me go back to the top and see some of the progress. So I saw that Buki was saying that I've just finished the capstone project on Linux administration and shell scripting. It was quite challenging with all the back and forth. It took me nearly 3 weeks to complete. That's interesting, because a capstone project that you may have thought, maybe I could just finish this in one day or two. If it has taken you 3 weeks to finish it, I can imagine how much of knowledge that you have, absorbed in those 3 weeks, because that's the only time you have to build skill, right? So if you go into an interview now and they're asking you about a time where you have used, I don't know what the use case in this capstone project is, but whatever it is, they're asking you a time where you have done something similar to that. Instantly, you don't have to fake it. You can just freely talk about it. In fact, you'll be excited to talk about it because you know what it took you, to get to the point where you can say, yes, I'm done, and you submit the project and you get feedback from our AI. So that's really, really good. So well done to you, Buki. That's exciting. Okay. And a lot today is asking you, Bookie, if you will be kind enough to share some insight into how you were able to complete it. So I guess a lot today is also working on that particular project. So that's really good. All right. So let's find something else. Okay. Yeah. I can see Bookie has responded there saying you're happy to connect on Slack. So that's really good. So Fini is saying here, I think using the right tech terms have actually stopped me from asking or of me from asking or answers questions. You get what that is? Most times I realize I actually knew it or close to it, but expressing it in the right term sometimes stops me. But this is really helpful. Okay, I guess this was where we were talking about, using terminology the right way when you're uh, in teams. Yes, that's very important. And the more you practice it, the more you get better at it. Okay, like I said, it's not something you want to start memorizing. And we use the word cram. In my country, when you're trying to cram times table, right? And you just want to be able to learn it, put it in your head without really understanding how to get to the answers and just deliver it when you're being asked. Well, that's not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is to allow it to get into you. And I learned that when I was in secondary school in Nigeria, because I was at some point in my journey in my education, I had a bit of problem. So when I was very young, we call it primary school in my country, right, in Nigeria. So I was in primary two. I guess I was really good, in my academics and everything. So they gave me what we call double promotion. So I had a double promotion from primary two to primary four. So I never did primary three ever in my life, but that messed me up completely, messed me up. I wish my parents, didn't allow me to go through that, but it really messed me up because I got to primary four and I started struggling. I struggled big time, so I was literally just pushed to primary five. And then guess what? I didn't do primary six. I did the common entrance exam and went into GSS1, and that totally messed me up completely. So GSS1, I had to repeat GSS1 because academically I was struggling, so bad. So I repeated JSS1, and then I was just, trying to gather myself back again. And then I was just progressing gradually. And I got to SS1. So SS1 is like, after you've spent like 4 years, well, 3 years in the secondary school, the fourth year in the secondary school is SS1. So when I got to SS1, I had a biology teacher. If he's listening to this right now, shout out to him. His name was Mr. Ape, right? That's the name. I remember clearly, Mr. Ape. Now, what Mr. Ape used to do is completely different from what every other teacher used to do to us then. Okay, every other teacher will come to class and they will write, they'll teach and then they'll write on the board our note, and then we'll have to copy the notes from the board into our book. Mr. Ape had a completely different approach. He will never write a note on the board. Never, ever. He comes to class, he teaches us biology, and he explains the concept, what he's about to teach. He teaches us, and you better listen at the time he's talking about it because you're going to write your own note in your own words. Okay? It's his class is that class where our notes is never identical. Okay, I can't copy someone else's note. Okay, because the other classes, if I'm not in class, I can copy my friend's notes and just copy the notes and go home. You can never expect the same notes in the class, even though you're in the same class. So he would teach the concept and then give us time, maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so. And then he will say, summarize what I have just taught you now in your own word. God, that completely changed my life. completely, because then I understood that I have to comprehend what I'm being taught. Okay. And I have to be able to deliver it in my own words. Guess what? When I'm speaking, I'm able to speak the terminologies, the terms that is relevant. And that is exactly what I have applied to every area of my life to this point. And that's exactly the same model that we're using at Dire.io. So for those on Dire.io, you realize that, you will do your project and we ask you to document it and then you submit your project. That's exactly what we're doing. Getting you to write it in your own way and consume that information. Now, if you're going to go a step further, is when you use the knowledge gap and say, guys, I want to teach what I've learned. The moment you start talking about it, it becomes natural. It becomes completely natural and you never have to struggle with it, and that way you can express yourself freely. You go to interviews, you don't have to even prepare for interviews like many people would, right? They can wake you up right now and ask you, when are you available for an interview? You can say, I'm ready now, or I'm ready tomorrow. I kid you not, right? I'm sure if Shubham was still on this call and someone asked him right now, would you like to get on an interview for a job? He will say, yes, I'm ready now. Let's do it. Because he doesn't have to go study or read or do anything about it. It's natural, right? So that's very, very important. So Fee, I'm glad that you find this helpful and you're gonna apply that in your life. Okay, so Ejaka, we've responded to that question. Okay, let's see. So, all right, so this is an update from Linux saying I was able to understand YAML syntax and create a deployment resource for MongoDB and Mongo Express, defining moment for me. Oh, that's really, really good. Happy to hear that. Okay, again, had a tech blog just like a writer's block maybe, but I was able to complete my project 16. Never have I been so happy to complete a project. So working on the next project, implementing CI/CD for Terraform using Jenkins. That's really good. So Fini, I take it you're on our previous platform. So we've actually moved to a new platform. So mentioning project 16 immediately suggests to me that you're on. So previously, that's how we used to present the projects. Projects 1, 2, 3, all the way to 30. But on our new platform that we have released this year, we have mini project and capstone project, and there are lots of them. So it goes way beyond the way we used to do it then, and now we have AI integrated. Previously, we used to manually review the projects, and obviously it's error prone, and it takes some time before you can get feedback on your project. But now we have AI integrated into our system that really understands how to analyze your work, including screenshots, and able to give you instant feedback on what you've done and even score you. Okay, so that you get the relevant score and you can take that feedback to improve upon your work. And I think that's really fantastic. Okay, I can see Collins here says, I'm new to Dire.io and I'm ready to learn all that's necessary to drive my DevOps knowledge. That's very good. All right. Onye Wuchi says, I'm 40 plus. Can I enroll? Absolutely. You can enroll. That in simple terms, what I'm going to say. But we've had people above 50 enroll into the program and actually start their career. There are a few people, and if you're interested to actually speak to a few people, you can reach out. Send an email to us. Actually, Dari@Dari.io is my personal email. You can reach out to me. I can actually recommend you to speak to some people in your category that have been through this and they can share their journey. So we have a few people that are in like 50s that started, took the project coming from maybe oil and gas or some other industry, and they took this journey and they're not working in the real world, so you can learn from that. Okay. Okay, it's also on your which here says the same thing. Will I struggle? I'm an IT service manager, especially there. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not a walk in the park. Okay, so don't be fooled when someone tells you, "Oh, come learn DevOps, IT, and all that," and in 3 weeks or 1 month or 2 months or whatever, you're gonna be good. Realistically, it's a journey. Okay, so our platform is not to deceive people in terms of how quickly you can learn, and that's why we've broken it down into stages. So we have the foundation that runs for 3 months. There's the advanced that runs for another 3 months, and then we have the externs that you can have run in chunks of 3 months as well. And it's a lifelong thing. You carry on learning, and in between that journey, you can start going for interviews, and you can just get your job while you're carry on building the skills and getting the experience going on. Okay. All right. I think that's the last question we have here. So it's been amazing having you guys on the Fireside Chat today. I really had a great time. So if you are interested in joining us and get your journey started, there's no better time than now. So you can reach out. My personal email is dari@dari.io. And if we have any support person on the call, can you please share the support email as well? We do have a support email. Haven't got it top of my head because we changed it recently. But yeah, actually, I didn't type it correctly. Dare@dare.io. Okay, so it's DARE. Actually, let me put it on the screen. So it's DARE@DAREY.io. You can reach out to me and I can help you. I can guide you. Just send an email what you want, whether it's a direction, career guide, whatever you want to enroll into our program, and I can point you in the right direction. We have expert consultants in our business that can actually help you, and we can get on a Zoom call and discuss your situation and really see how we can help you navigate, whether it's cybersecurity, data analysis, data science, you want to go into AI, or DevOps, those pathways are there for you and we can help you get there. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's been amazing, and I will see you again in 2 weeks. So don't forget, another countdown starts today, right? For the next 2 weeks, make sure you learn something, make sure you complete some of your projects, and then we'll talk about your progress in the next 2 weeks. Peace.